about that. The genocide of the indigenous people. The killing of all the Native Americans that they could. The dispossession of the Mexicans, taking away half of Mexico. And the subservience of women. Those four sources of the continuing problem of the American society are the sources for our radical tradition. Yes, sir. Remember that. Four of them: enslavement of Africans, genocide of the indigenous people, dispossessions of Mexicans, and the subservience of women. Now, there's some other things that also have gone on, but those four have provoked in the African American people, and the African people, even before we were Americans. We were not Americans until after 1865. But before we were Americans, as African people, those four sources provoked in us a response. We had to respond to that. And those responses on the part of the African people helped to establish our radical tradition. Now, let me tell you something. This is before Marxism. You don't have the Russian Revolution until 1917. We didn't wait around 1917 and say, hey, wait a minute, we got to learn Marxism so that we can respond to the enslavement of Africa. That we got to wait for the Marxists to tell us how to respond to the genocide of the indigenous and the dispossession of the Mexicans and the subservience of women. We can't wait for them.
No. That's right. That's right.
This is why I tell you, it's so important that this notion, this academic notion, that somehow there's a black radical tradition that's different from the tradition that we have always had to respond and to resist oppression. We've always had that. That's been a part of our history and a part of our culture. So I wonder whether or not radical is just a word used by intellectuals. Yes, sir. Just to make you sound smart. Oh, we got a radical, black radical tradition. Wait. Well, do you understand what it is? What it means? Is it simply a term for Marxists? And the reason I ask that is because there have been African American writers, people like Glenn Ford, the late Glenn Ford, who wrote crazy stuff. And that crazy stuff became a part of the verbiage and the vocabulary and the arguments of academic people who went around talking about the black radical tradition, and meaning basically that all these Marxists, they were the real radical tradition. I'm going to show you that's not true. I'm going to show you that's not true. I'm going to talk about certain Marxist intellectuals who were truly valuable to our cause, but we had a radical movement before we met the Marxists, before we even knew them, before we even had any tradition that related to them. There is a notion that Maulana Karenga has called the Kawaida response to resistance. And I like this notion because he says that resistance is not just opposition. You're not just opposed to things. It's not just an opposition to an idea, but it's also an affirmation of yourself. And not only an affirmation, but it's also an aspiration. So you got, when you start talking about resistance, you're talking about opposition, you're talking about affirmation, and you're also talking about aspiration. And that's what has happened in African tradition as long as I can remember and as long as I know. Let me tell you a little bit about the heroic narratives, and then we'll sort of set the tone. We are celebrating now January the 1st, 1804, the Haitian independence. Dessalines then becomes the leader of Haiti in 1804. And the people of Haiti, I happen to be fortunate to eat soup with people in Haiti in 2004, which was a celebration of the bicentennial. And at that time, Aristide was the president of Haiti, and it was a beautiful occasion. And this notion of eating soup is a very common thing for Independence Day in Haiti, if you know anything about Haiti.